We continue the laws of Ibn and Chalitza, the Levirate and the removal laws of a woman that is she's a widow without any offspring to her husband or her, and it becomes incumbent for a brother, if there be a brother, to carry on the family, and by marrying her. That's the Levirate law. And if he chooses or she chooses, either one choose not to marry, then you have to do the mitzvah of chalitza, which is removal of the bond that there is between the brother and the widow. Okay, so there are brothers who are fit to perform either the rite of yibum and the rite of chalitza. In other words, as we'll see as we carry on in the next, we're in chapter 6, in the next halacha. So, in other words, they can do both. And there are brothers who are not fit to perform the rite of yibum or the rite of chalitza. Right? They can't do either, as we'll see again who's in those categories. He's just setting out the structure, not giving us the info or the insight into that yet. The deceased wives are under no obligation to them at all. In other words, to someone who is not fit to perform either one, right? So the deceased wife can go and marry anybody. That's the issue over here. They may marry any other man. There are brothers who are fit to perform the rite of chalitza, but not fit to the rite of yibum. There are brothers who are fit to perform the rite of yibum, but not the rite of chalitza. Okay, who are they? Well, let's go further. We'll find out. Okay? Halacha number 2. With regard to the following, the deceased wives have no obligation at all. Who do they have no obligation to? Is a saris chama, castrated person, an androgynous person, right, who has signs of both male and female, for they are not fit to father children, nor had been at any time. So therefore, right, the whole point over here is what? She should marry the brother, so the brother will have seed and carry on his brother's seed, who passed on without a family, right? So these people can't do it, so she has no obligation to them. And meaning she doesn't have to go through the rite of yibum or chalitza, either one of them, because they can't do either. And she's free to marry anybody. Right? That's the point over here.
So it has to be the oldest brother. That's the
no, that's not the point over here. No, that's a discussion we already had. It is the oldest brother. The first one is the oldest brother that's remaining, but it doesn't have to be. But that's not the point over here. The point over here is that these are people that she has no obligation to at all, right? A castrated person, because he can't have father children, or an androgynous person is not going to father either,
Sure.
Right? So therefore, she doesn't, if that's the brother that's left, then she has no obligation to them and she's free to marry anybody. That's the point. Okay? Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Number 3. These are the brothers who are fit to perform the rite of yibum, but not the rite of chalitza. In other words, they could marry her, but they can't remove their right to be connected to her. A deaf mute, mentally incompetent man, and a minor. What's the rationale? Because they lack mental competence to perform chalitza. Well, let's continue. We'll see further. When a deaf mute performs yivum, he may never divorce the yavama. For by entering into a relationship with her, he established marriage bond that is completely binding and is incapable of divorcing a woman in a completely effective manner. Because, let me explain. The brother over here, remember, the brother that is left to the widow, right? There's a relationship between them already, right? She's in waiting for the Levirate marriage, and he is the Levite who has to perform it, right? So there's already a connection here. It's not consummate, but there's a connection here already. So the deaf mute or the mentally incompetent, right? He didn't create that relationship. The relationship is there. So therefore he can consummate the relationship. But to do chalitza, you need mental competence. Lacking it, so he can't do chalitza. He's disqualified from doing chalitza. In other words, to do the removal, to remove himself, that you need mental competence. Can't do it, right? So therefore, the deaf mute, right? He can't divorce her.
So both are needed, Yibum and Chalitza.
What?
Both are required. The person must be.
Well, no, all he can do is yivum. He can't do chalitza.
So what I'm saying is that in order to happen, the individual must be able to do both.
Must be
able to do both, Yibum and Chalitza.
No, we didn't say that. No. Let's go further. Let's go. No, 1 second. No, that it
because if he's fit to perform the right, but not the right of Chalitza, right?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. No, yeah, listen, it would be a very unfortunate circumstance, right? But this is the fact that the deaf mute person can only do yivum because yivum doesn't require intent because there's already a relationship there, right? There's just consummation of it. They have relations, right? Then they consummate and they're married, right? So there's no there doesn't need intent. Chalitza needs intent. You have to understand that you're separating yourself from this woman, that you are you no longer have a relationship with that woman, right? With the widow of your brother. So they can't do that. All they could do is evil. That's the point here. Okay, is that clear?
Maybe I should have asked the question before, but anyway, let's go on.
Okay, when a Yavam who is below the age of majority but more than 9 years old and one day performs Yibum, he acquires Yivama as a wife. He may not, however, divorce her until he attains majority, as we've explained. Why? Because again, divorce, just like Chalitza, needs intent, needs mindfulness, needs awareness of what you're doing, right? And it can only come from the time of responsibility, which is the age of majority at 13.
Right.
So he could divorce her then, but he couldn't before that. Then how could he become a Yivom? Because we explained you don't need intent in that because there's already a relationship that's been developed by the Torah, by the fact that the Torah says that the widow is connected to the brother already, right? These are the brothers, now halacha 4, who are fit to perform the rite of chalitza, but not for yivum, right? Okay, that's a different category now. Those whose status is in doubt. There's a doubt whether the yavama is forbidden to the deceased brother. Let's see, the person consecrated on one of two sisters and then it is not known which one he consecrated, he's not allowed to marry because he does not know which one is a woman. A man can't marry two sisters, right? So let's say he consecrated one sister, but he doesn't know which one. Okay, that sounds crazy. What do you mean you don't know? That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant, right? It's not a point of whether this ever happened, but it's giving us the extreme boundary of the law, okay? and the parameter of the law. So that's called a status in doubt, right?
That's not-
You consecrated one of two sisters, but you're not certain which one. Right? Two twin sisters,
Right, that is
and
right.
you didn't know which one you consecrated. And for whatever reason, she wasn't aware too either. Sounds crazy.
It's just a principle.
It's a principle that we're bringing out. Exactly. Okay. So there's a doubt over here. So there's a doubt whether the Avama is forbidden. So now she died. I mean, he died. And there's a brother. So is the brother, the problem is, who's the brother gonna be connected to? There's a doubt here. So he can't do Yibum. The only thing he can do is Chalitza. Because Chalitza is separating you. So you can separate from both of them because one of them was consecrated. So you can do that, you could do, but you can't marry one of them because maybe it's the wrong one. So Yivum you can't do, but Chalitza you could do. Got it? Another example, a man who's crushed testicles or a crushed member or who has been castrated in another way, kind of way that would make him, okay? Or an elderly man whose virility has been weakened, is an incapable. In other words, he's not going to have a child, right? So, which means they can't do Yivum, but they could do Chalitza. That's the point. They could separate themselves from this woman, right? That they could do. Crushed testicles means you can't marry because you're not going to be able to have a child, right? That's something we learned previously. So all of them, they could do Chalitza, but they can't do Yivum. So if a Yavam was castrated, enters into relation with the Yavama, he acquires her as a wife, or there was a time when he was sexually potent. He must, however, divorce her with a get because he is forbidden to marry a native-born Jewish. Because not getting... So since he was at one point not castrated, right? So then he could marry. Okay, a timtum. A timtum is someone who has got both genitals and you don't, but they're covered over.
Okay.
Or sorry, the genitals are covered over and you're not certain what they are, male or female. Should perform chalitza, but not evil, because his status is one of doubt. If an operation was performed and it is revealed that he is male, he may perform either chalitza or yibum as he desires. So that's it, right? The timtum is, again, it's covered over, but surgery was done, and now you know it's a male, so therefore he could do either or. Brothers of a deceased who are not in any of the categories listed above may perform either chalitza or yibum, right? So everybody else, which is the majority of people, obviously, right, will be able to do either or. Okay, number 5. There are Yavamas who are fit to perform either the rite of chalitza or the rite of yibum. There are Yavamas who are not fit to perform either the rite of yibum or the rite of chalitza. They are under no obligation to the deceased brothers at all, and they may marry another man. Right? The woman can marry anybody, right? There are Yavamas who are fit to perform the rite of chalitza, but not the rite of yibum. And there are Yavamas who are fit to the yibum, but not the rite of chalitza. Okay, so these are the Yavamas who may perform the rite of yibum, but not the rite of chalitza. Deaf, mute, mentally incompetent, a mentally incompetent woman and a minor. How come we did this and now we're repeating it and he added incompetent a mentally incompetent woman and a minor. We said all this. Rationally, they cannot perform chalitza is that they lack mental competence to read and to understand. If the Yavam desires to divorce the deaf mute and with a get after he engages in relations with her, he may. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, before we were speaking about the man. Now we're speaking about the woman. Now, before we were speaking about the man who was mentally incompetent, right? If a man was mentally incompetent, he couldn't do yivum, he could only do chalitza, right? Now we're speaking about how about the woman? How about if the woman, she's deaf mute, or she's mentally incompetent and a minor, right? So in that instance, the man, he cannot perform chalitza. Why? Because she also has to be mentally competent. Both of them have to have mental competency to be able to do it. And there isn't. But what he could do is divorce her. Because in the mental competence, you have to read something which we learned yesterday. You have to read, you have to understand what you're reading. You have to understand what you're doing.
But shouldn't the mental competence be required to marry her in the first place? She should have that confidence.
So very good, very good. So biblically correct. Yes. Rabbinically, the rabbis wanted to protect the woman who's mentally incompetent or deaf mute, and they said that you could marry her, right? Now, biblically, you can't, but rabbinically, you could, and that was a protection for the woman, because who's going to take care of her, right? Who's going to take care of her? So if there's a man who's ready to marry her, right? So they actually said you can marry her without a ksuba. Right? Because ksuba is a protection. So what man is wanting to marry her is she's deaf mute and or mentally incompetent, right? So and I'm going to have a responsibility if I'm going to divorce her. So the rabbi said, you don't have to give a ksuba, because that way that will be more of a reason for you to want to marry her, right? For whatever reason, as is opening the door, more of a chance, and she will be taken care of. So it's actually a very great kindness that is being done, right? But that being said, he tried and not interested. And here we're talking about not marriage. We're talking about yivum, the Levirate law, right? So we're talking about the brother. So here's a bigger challenge though, because since they were already in a relationship, because he happens to be the brother, too bad, right? This is the way God made things fall into your path, and she is not mentally competent, so you can't do chalitza. So you can't, so you could get married, but you could divorce her. Because the divorce is something that predicates on you, even she just has to receive it. She doesn't have to have the mental competence for the divorce. That's unique about the divorce, right? And that's what it says over here. If he desires, he can give a get after he has to have relations with her first, though. Why? Because he has to consummate the Levirate law, and that is by relations. And therefore, they're fully married. And once they're fully married, so now we could divorce her. Got it? Pretty nuanced. Hi. Okay, these are the avamas. Now we're speaking about the woman, right? Before we spoke about the man and his deficiencies, right? And who then, and what parameter can he do yivum or chalitza, right? Now we're talking about her and her deficiency, right? So these are the avamas. These are the women who may perform the rite of chalitza. I mean, in others, they can be involved in chalitza, but not the rite of yivum. Women who are forbidden to the ovam. because of a negative commandment, because of a rabbinic ordinance, shniyos, or because of a positive commandment, as will be explained. So in other words, this, even though it's a brother, but this woman is forbidden to him. So let's see. Whenever there's that whether or not a woman was divorced by the deceased, she should perform chalitza and not evil, lest the yavam violate the prohibition. For the brother's wife who was divorced is forbidden as an erva. You can't marry a sister-in-law if she's been divorced. Right?
Okay.
So you can't marry your sister-in-law if she's been divorced. What if you're not certain she was divorced and he died? How that can be is a different story. It doesn't matter. There's a status over here of this woman. We don't know. Her husband passed away, no children, right? And we're not certain if he divorced her. So the problem is now the brother, if she was divorced, if she's not divorced, and then she falls, she's a yavama. He's the yibum, yavam, and they have to do a yibum, right? They have to do levirate. That's if she wasn't. But what if she was divorced? Then he is forbidden to her.
But where's the get if she's divorced?
Again, it's a doubt for whatever reason. Let's say we don't know if it was a proper get. Maybe it's a forged get. We don't know. I said there's a doubt here. However, that doubt emerges, but there's a doubt. The document isn't a proper document, and we're doubtful about the document, right? And therefore, it's not a proper divorce, right? Maybe it was never given to her. It has to come to her. If she never got it, then she's not divorced, right? He might have written it, but as we learned, it has to come to her possession. If it doesn't come to her possession, or an agent takes it on her behalf, or whatever the case may be, right? She didn't receive it. We don't know if she received it. Maybe he died before she received it. So therefore, she died a married woman. So there's a doubt here. He made an agent to give it to her because he was in Europe and she is in America. Made an agent and he died in the interim. Did she get it before? That means she's divorced. If she didn't get it before, right? And we don't know for whatever reason. Well, back then, it wasn't today. You can send a text and the exact minute that he passed away. You don't know these things. So there's a doubt here. In such an instance, he can't marry her. Right? Why? Because a divorced sister-in-law you can't marry. If, however, there's a doubt regarding whether the woman was consecrated to one's deceased brother, her status is like that of the Yavama, and she may perform either chalitza or yibum, for there is no possibility of a prohibition being involved. Aha. What happens if there's a doubt whether he consecrated her? Consecrated means he gave her a ring, first part of marriage, right? Which is not living together, but you are two halves of one soul, right? Can't have relations outside of, right? And not certain of that, again. And he died, right? And how could you be not certain? Well, maybe there weren't proper witnesses. You have to have two proper witnesses to the consecration, and we don't know because it was done, and we don't know who the witnesses are. We don't know the facts, right? Well, so there's no prohibition here because if the brother's consecration was effective, then the Yavam is performing the mitzvah. And if it was not effective, then he has no ties to the woman at all. And he may consecrate her as he consecrates any other woman. Follow? Either way, he could marry her. Because if her brother did consecrate her, then he's the Yavam. And if he didn't, then he can marry her. So there's no prohibition involved over here. So therefore, he could do chalitza or yibum. right? Similarly, a wife of a deaf mute, an elderly woman. I guess the elderly woman, if she's not going to conceive of a child, right? Right? Or a woman who has become barren are like other Yavamis. The Yavam may perform either chalitza Yivam as he desires rationale as the elderly woman, and the woman who is barren were once fit to bear children. So this is interesting. The interesting parameter in halacha, right, over here. Others, the fact that you can't bear now means, but though one point you could, right? One point you could. So therefore, you do not have a category or a halachic, status of someone barren. You're barren now, but doesn't mean that's what your halachic status is, and therefore, you could marry that person. It's interesting. I don't 100% get it because the whole point here is to carry forward, right? So I don't know how that fits exactly.
And apart from that, the woman who's elderly, I mean, what is the chance of her having?
Right. I'm saying that's my question is like in the spirit of what the mitzvah is, it doesn't seem to fit in. In the parameter of the halacha, okay, so I understand the status that we're giving to this woman, right?
It says they were once fit to be children, but
Right. But they're not fit now. Halacha number 8. Following are not obligated to perform either chalitza or yibum. A wife of a saris chama, or a wife of an androgynous. Wife of a mentally incompetent person, the wife of a minor, an islandess, or a woman forbidden to her yavam is one of the arayas. The rationale of these laws is as follows. It states that yavam was instituted, so the name of the deceased will not be obliterated within Israel, right? This excludes a wife of a saris chama, or a wife of an androgynous, right? Because they're not going to be able to give birth. But their names are obliterated by nature. Right? Androgynous person, someone who was born that way. Saris chama means someone who was born castrated. Not was castrated, but born that way. Right? So their names are already obliterated, meaning what name meaning over here, progeny, has been right by nature. Since they are inherently unfit to father children, they are considered to be in a separate category. Right? So therefore they can't do either one. The verse continues, it says, firstborn that she bears, this excludes an islandess, who by nature is incapable of bearing children, a child, right? Islandess is someone who never develops, female, doesn't mature, right? Remains like a child, like a childlike individual, right? Right. Interesting. Today, we would probably call those people someone who's got another kind of disease, like, is on the spectrum and maybe didn't mature physically. It can happen, right? Like a Downs, maybe, I don't know, but that's mental incompetence already. That's different.
yeah.
The islandness is not this. Silentness is not this. This is not mental incompetence. It is written a wife of a deceased. This excludes a wife of a mentally incompetent person or a wife of a minor, which in regard to them, there is no concept of marriage at all, right? Because it says a wife, but that means there's marriage over here.
Yeah.
So it has to be someone who there's a capacity for marriage. A minor, there isn't, right? And mentally incompetent, biblically, there isn't, right? Actually, by the way, a mentally incompetent man, I don't know, I can't remember now if he can marry a regular woman. It's the other way around for sure, because that's protecting the woman. but I'm not certain the other way, and that's only right. Anyways, so that's on the verse continues, and he will take her as a wife. This excludes a woman forbidden to her yavam as one who has a varaya, so she cannot be taken as a wife. Right. In other words, she is forbidden to him. So the verse says you'll take her as a wife, the widow, right? So meaning the implication is someone who you can take as a wife, not someone who is forbidden to you, because then you can't take them as a wife. That's the implication that I'm saying. So now he goes in number 9. How's it possible a woman be forbidden to her yavam as one of the arayas? Why would it be forbidden to the brother, but not to the deceased brother who married her? How's that fit? So, for example, the Yavama was a sister, the mother, the daughter of the Yavam's wife. That's so the. In other words, 2 brothers married 2 sisters, right? One brother died. Guess what? He can't now marry the other one because it's forbidden to him. Or it's the mother that he married, right? Either one. Or the daughter of the Yavam, right? All those relationships are forbidden. So such one was not obligated to perform either chalitza or yibum at all. On the relation of the Yavan, as verse says, and he shall take her as a wife, thus performing yibum. Only a woman who is fit to be married and whose consecration by the Yavam is binding is obligated to perform yibum. Okay, we're going to stop here. Amazing stuff.
Thank you, Rabbi.
This is very long because the tractate Yevamais, there's a tractate Yevamais, it's called. It's one of the hardest ones because of the relationships, the different kind of relationship that it goes into, and all the possibilities and so on. And that's what we're going in over here. And we went into the non-complex. It gets more complicated.
Thank you.
It gets more complicated. Yeah. But anyways, we got a taste of it today for sure. All right, folks. Thank you very much. Have a great day.